Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Bearded Prepper. Thank you for joining me again. This is session 2 in the Basic Needs series. I talked in the last session, session 1, about protection. Hopefully you got some good points out of that, or at least some good direction, or at least maybe somewhere to head with that, just to kind of start getting ready, start getting prepared in the area of protection. Today I wanted to talk to you in this series about food, really about food and water, because when we talk about the essential need of food, I include water in that category. So again, we're just going to focus on using common sense to make sure that we're prepared in the event that food and water availability is interrupted, to make sure you're prepared for that, and that you're using just good old common sense to get there. No need to stress over it or fall victim to the doomsday hype, that some people use to maybe scare folks into a reaction. And, not to really get off on that rabbit trail, but frankly, I can't even stand to watch the news hardly anymore, because that's all you get. It doesn't matter which point of view they're trying to promote, whether it be the left or the right or anywhere in between. They're just trying to provoke an emotional reaction out of you, I guess, for the sake of ratings or whatever. I mean, whatever happened to just reporting the news? Just tell me what happened without any spin on it. Anyway, sorry to go off on that rabbit trail. Let's get back on track. So using common sense to make sure you're prepared in the event your food or water supply is disrupted. I mean, that can be anything from major disruption on a broader scale, a national level or regional level, to just an impact from a natural disaster, or anything of that nature. And with supply chain being what it is, we're hearing stories every day of parts and new equipment taking longer and longer to arrive once ordered. So make sure you have a backup plan. And when we talk about what to store, what should you store? Basically, I always start with store what you can eat. It's just as simple as that. If you have food allergies or severe reactions to some things, if you're highly allergic to shellfish, don't store a bucket full of oysters. Look at what you can eat. And when I'm talking about what you can eat, let's talk about what you can eat based off of somewhat off of preference or taste as well. Some people will say it doesn't matter if you're in that kind of situation, you eat what you eat, which is true. But if you have a choice, if you can prepare in advance, which is what my channel is all about, why not select items that you enjoy as well? And let's face it, if you're in that kind of situation, especially if it is an extended period, you're going to want anything to lift your spirits. And what better than food, right? So we've talked about what to store. Just start with what you enjoy, but let's also start with what approaches you can take. I mean, if money is no problem for you, if you have unlimited resources or very good resources and you can afford to buy whatever you want, go for it. If you want to buy 50 pallets of freeze-dried food that'll last 25 plus years, go for it. Just make sure you enjoy the taste of it. I would try it before I ordered a large bulk, but that's just me. For the rest of the world, people like me that operate off of a budget, sometimes a very tight budget, I encourage you to use your common sense and seize opportunities when you see it. Just a quick example. Went to one of my favorite stores today, Dollar General, for preps. I only went in there for a few things, but I happened to see on their dollar aisle and their clearance aisle, they had things like Knorr pasta and rice packets, side packets, soap, 2 packs of soap, smaller containers of Dawn dish detergent, things like that. They gave me 8 pounds of rice. It was at the expiration date. And I said, well, I mean, this is expiring. I'm looking at it. I know it's still good. It's still dry. It hasn't been damaged. And I know that I can take it home and throw it in a Mylar bag, and it'll be good for, with some oxygen absorbers, with oxygen absorbers, you're talking like 20 years, probably 15, 20 years, even at the store or stamp on expiration date, as long as it's in good condition and you don't see any signs of dampness or molding or anything like that. So, hey, there was 8 pounds of rice added to my preps for free. All I had to do was just go the short distance to the store and back. But all in all, I'll show you my receipt. It's a pretty lengthy receipt. All these items, $29.05. You can't beat it. I mean, look for opportunity and seize it when it's there. I think I showed you in my original post, my introductory post, I had purchased 10 toothbrushes. They were $1 a piece. Found them there at the same store. Why not? Average toothbrush, you're looking at what, $3 plus with inflation? I just saved a lot of money. Yeah, I had to spend a little bit up front, but in the long term, you know, I basically got 3 for $1, $1 a piece. So, you know, look for those kind of opportunities and really capitalize on them if you're on a budget. That'll help. But just getting started. So start small. If you don't have a lot of money, if you say, hey, you know, I'm working off of a very small budget, I can barely make ends meet, I'm just getting groceries on the table and stuff like that. Well, we all know how to cut back some, right? If we have an unexpected bill or something, we know how to reduce our expenditures on groceries just a little bit to help out. Maybe you could do that for a little bit. Double up on the basic things that you need. You know, for me, back in 2013, 2012, that's when I really started my journey on the trail to being prepared. I started with here's what I did. I researched what will last me the longest. What can I afford that will last the longest? Because I don't want to have to be eating 50 pounds of beans a year just because that's all I can afford. So I did start with some beans, but not just beans, peas and different varieties. So I wasn't eating the same thing all the time. I also put back rice, white rice, beans, even without Mylar bags. If you keep them in proper storage, you can get them to last 8+ years. Honey. 4 things for you to remember that will not expire if you store it properly. Honey, popcorn, salt, sugar. So I started with those items as well because I knew if I could store them properly, they would never go bad. Even if you're on your honey, eventually you may get some honey that turns into granules like sugar or you know, somewhat solidifies. All you have to do is put that container back in a warm water bath for a little bit. It turns right back into liquid. So honey is a forever product if it's stored properly, along with popcorn, salt, and sugar. They even pulled popcorn out of the ancient Egyptian pyramids. They were stored in containers there, and it actually popped all this time later. So store it properly, it will last. Start with the basics. You can afford these things. I mean, out of that list, yeah, honey and popcorn are probably the most expensive. Really, honey is probably the most expensive. Sugar, salt, dried beans and peas, and dried rice, you can get that fairly inexpensively. As I demonstrated today, you can even get it for free sometimes. So, you know, go for it when you can get it. And just kind of work out from there. If you can kind of double your basics, even if you don't have enough money to double everything in a month, set yourself up a plan. Set up a 6-month plan saying, okay, this month I'm going to get double the rice I normally use. I'm going to get, you know, this or that, and budget it out so that it works for you. And then you can, as you start gaining momentum and you look for opportunities to capitalize on where you can find it on sale or even free, you'll be surprised how much momentum you can build in preparing your food storage. So now storage is the key word. You're going to waste your money if you don't use proper storage techniques. You know, yeah, I've talked about Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. I think that's really probably the premium method for storing items. I use a vacuum sealer. I use a Food Saver brand. Not that I have any particular attachment to that other than it has a good reputation, but I bought it for $3. That's right, a full-size Food Saver vacuum sealer for $3. I've actually bought 2 of them over the years, and the other one was even cheaper than that. I think it was $1.50 at Goodwill. So Goodwill's another good place to look. You may find canning jars, you might find food sealers. Granted, in this environment, people are going to Goodwill a lot more. They're going to discount stores a lot more. So keep your eyes open. If you have time, go through, peruse those areas, even if it's only a 5-minute quick tour of the store, and look for something that can help you in your preps. So back to storage. Here's the main 3 things. If you don't remember anything else, I want you to remember this. It has to be stored in a dry place. It has to be stored out of sunlight, out of natural light. Really, I prefer, if it's dry, out of light, period. And also no extreme temperature swings, or no extreme temperatures, meaning nothing really hot. I try not to get my stuff higher than 80 degrees, and I definitely don't want it to drop below 50 degrees, unless it's something that I'm storing in the freezer itself. So, and even then, you don't want to take it in and out, because if you do, you're looking at condensation building up in the containers if you take it in and out of the freezer. So, and then of course if you start storing up amounts of food, you've got to think about, where am I going to put this? Not everyone has a ton of space. If you do have a separate space or a closet you can use, that's preferable inside your temperature controlled house. But beyond that, think about shelving. You can get some, or build some inexpensive shelving to hold the supplies, something that's accessible. You want to be able to see what you have, and you want to be able to move around. And I'll explain later when we get to rotation why that's important. But you can use tubs, whether it be the plastic totes or whatever. For me, one thing that I found useful, you do have some dead space in it, but it was so easy to move, and I could just grab it and go if I had to, is regular buckets. You can, for a few dollars, you can get a bucket, and a plastic bucket, 5-gallon bucket with a handle and a lid at Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply, Lowe's, Home Depot, any of those stores. They all sell them. So that was easy for me. And you know, that could work for you as well, depending on how much volume you're looking to stow. It's sealed. Granted, you can spend a little more and get the rubber seals on the lids, but if you're keeping it in a dry environment, away from moisture, nothing wrong with it. It's a pretty good storage container. So let's talk about rotation, because rotation is key. Rotate your supplies. If it has an expiration date and it's not sealed with oxygen absorbers in a Mylar bag, even if it is, then you want to remain aware of how long it's been there. Your stuff that is the oldest or has the earliest expiration date, you've got to bring it forward, and you got to put the newer stuff to the back. Keep it moving. That way you don't waste any of your money or waste any of your supplies. You don't have things going bad that you don't know about. That's really important. And yeah, it takes work. It really does. But you know what? If you're not going to get many things worthwhile if you don't put your effort into it. So this is just like anything else. You're going to have to put effort into it. So, you know, one thing I haven't even touched on is what our ancestors did, what the old timers did, or the pioneers did. My parents and generation before passed on to me how to can fresh, vegetables, fruit, meat, things of that nature. These days, with knowledge at the touch of our fingertips and the internet really readily available to us all, whether it be on a smartphone or the library or somewhere like that, there's no reason that we can't learn the art of canning and preserving food in jars, even if we didn't grow up doing it or have no one to teach us. So I encourage you to really check that out. As a matter of fact, after this video goes up, I have some figs that I went and harvested. I had some friends from the community that were going out of town. They said, look, our figs are just coming in. They're going to be wasted. If you want to come and pick our bushes, come do it. And I'll take them a jar of the fig preserves I'm going to put away with it. I'm also dehydrating some of them. So I'll do another short video and show you just a little quick episode, if you will, on canning. So there, look for that to come after this video. But beyond food preservation, I talked about water. You know, water is essential. Water is actually even more essential in the short term than food. So how are you going to store water? How are you going to access water if you don't have, let's say, electricity for an extended period? If you're fortunate enough to have a well, you can look at options for hand pumps, or depending on what type of well it is, if it's a larger bored well, you could actually even fix up some kind of manual draw system, whether it be a water tube or a bucket or something of that nature you could drop in. Manual pumps, they can get kind of expensive, and you have to have water level basically usually around 40 foot to the surface to be able to pump that out manually, unless you get a really expensive manual pump or things of that nature. I mean, that's the sky's the limit when it comes to that. You can research solar power batteries and electric pumps to pump it out and stuff like that, but that gets quite costly for most people. So you know, that's something to consider when you're looking at it. But you know, what if you're on public water, which a lot of people are. Some communities even have public water and have restrictions that prohibit you from drilling a well. So some of the things you can do is, as I said, you know, look when you're going around. You can get jugs of water. I have some jugs of water. I always keep at least 10 gallons of jugged water on hand that I rotate out to make sure it's not getting old. You can look at water storage containers, whether it be plastic barrels or specialized water containers and stuff like that. That's a possibility. I don't discourage it, but you have to know what you're doing to keep the water potable, whether it be some kind of chlorine or chemical treatment that you have to do every now and again. You can buy chlorine test strips pretty inexpensively at pool supply stores or Lowe's or somewhere like that, Home Depot. So you can keep a check on your water source, make sure it's chlorinated and staying potable, and also making sure you don't get too much chlorine in it or whatever for safe for human consumption. I'd encourage you to do your research, make sure that you're safe about that and smart. Also, you know, you can look at membrane type filters. Those are a little more costly. I use them when I'm backpacking sometimes, but mostly I use a UV light. You can look at any scale of UV light. They make UV lights that are large enough for whole house systems. They make UV lights as small as 1 liter at a time, and anywhere in between. So that's something you can research. Of course, you have to have a power source to have UV purification, unless you're talking about solar UV, which is possible. It's a little different, and it's a little more time consuming. Like, for example, if you take a quart jar or a liter of water and you put it out in the sunshine, theoretically, if it's in a clear container so the UV rays can come in, 8 hours later that water should be sterile, as long as it's not cloudy or doesn't have a lot of sediment, or it's not really stagnant, things of that nature. So that's one thing to consider. Do your research on that. Again, you have access to the information right at your fingertips these days. So I hope this prompted some of you to either feel encouraged. If you don't have a lot of financial resource that you can prep, you just have to start somewhere. That first step is always the hardest, and then as you gain momentum, you get excited about it, and things just kind of go from there. But you know, otherwise, feel free to leave comments about some of the things I may have overlooked, some of the basic things. I'm not trying to get too complicated in this series. I just want to give people the basic common sense options. And as I've mentioned before, and we'll mention again, make sure you're seeking the wisdom and the protection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Count on your Creator and your Father to be able to give you the ultimate provision and knowledge and wisdom that you need, and the resource that you need. And just seek to grow your faith so that you are prepared spiritually when tough times come. So until the next time, stay smart, use common sense, and be prepared. I'm the Bearded Prepper, signing off.